lights our way along the way. And Brother Kevin, you can turn me down just a hair, if you will. Daniel chapter number 6, and boy, there's so much that I want to say tonight. There's so much going on. I'm glad everybody's here and be in prayer. I don't know what's going on, but the men and I were meeting, and I do want us to pray for many of the people around the nation. You know, there's a sadness about the protesting. I see them all protesting, and there's just a sadness about what's going on in our nation, an emptiness. People are grasping, longing for something. And the answer that they're looking for is found in the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the only way that there is. And so, boy, I'm not sure where to start. Sunday nights are always a little bit odd, but a little bit different than our normal. But I'm just going to talk to you, and I want to start by addressing what I see going on in our country and where I see we're going. I think it's a pastor's job to help you see, to help you understand. I think we are called to be watchmen. And many months ago, and I'm not tooting my own horn, not by any stretch of the imagination, but when they came out and said, give us 15 days, we're going to lock your church down and we want you to lock down. Well, the thing that struck me right off the bat about that was the issue of force. Anytime, historically, you have given any government power, especially over the church, you rarely get that power back. And we were right to be afraid of that. 15 days turned into 30 days, turned into 2 or 3 months. And now the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court out in California, in a 5-4 decision by Judge Roberts, who our good brother in Christ Bush put into office, I say with great sarcasm, he voted that in California they can indefinitely now limit churches and limit how many they can have. It's stunning decision, absolutely stunning. Of course, when we started taking our stand, we were called radical, we were called overzealous, worried, and everything like that, but we weren't. And that the Supreme Court would go against the First Amendment is an amazing thing. But listen, that's the same Supreme Court that said there's no problem with killing a baby in the womb. We have this idea somehow that this is one nation under God, and she's not. She hadn't been for a long time. So I wanted to take just a moment because I think it's very apropos where we are in the book of Daniel. Daniel was what we would call a Christian in a hostile government. He was trying to live and do what was right in a foreign land, and that's where we are. You and I need to understand something, and I'm just going to talk to you as if we were just at my kitchen table. I'm going to talk to you in the same way about one of the things I was sharing with our family. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that you are in hostile territory as a Christian. And what you're seeing in the inner cities, what you're seeing, the violence and all of that, it is going to come to where we are. We have been able to sort of let it stay there and it doesn't bother us, but it is going to come and you and I need to be prepared. I'm going to make just a couple statements very quickly about it. Number one is the news media is some of the most filthy, vile pieces of human waste that I could ever possibly imagine. And I'm for a free press, but I'm not for lying and propaganda, and that's what we see. The fact of the matter is the masses of Americans feed off of clickbait. They feed off of articles that they read that they're too lazy to read the whole thing. They just sort of read a little bit. And the media is stirring it up and stirring it up and stirring it up and ginning it up and ginning it up. I think there ought to be a nationwide strike on all mainstream media. I believe that with all my heart. There was a CNN reporter that was arrested. They showed on TV, absolutely staged event, absolutely fake. There was nothing real about that at all. But CNN is vile, Fox, all of them. It's an amazing thing, the lies that permeate the atmosphere. And what you're seeing is lie after lie after lie. And I don't think that it's an accident that we're seeing this kind of stuff in an election cycle. I mean, you can almost count on it. Every time there's an election come around, we see these same things, the same propaganda crop up. And so it's a stunning thing. Learn to get your news sources from different areas. Learn to interpret the news. But I'm preaching to the choir now. You know what they are. Secondly, the protesting. I think there are 3 classes of protesters going on. The first one is there are a few that are legitimately angry about what happened and what is happening. And for whatever reason, whether they're justly angry or not, I think there's some protesters that are genuinely angry and they're peaceable protesters. They want to see change. Then I think there are a lot of wicked I don't know any other way to say it, but third world tribal influences that are the result of socialism. They've been given everything. They've been conditioned that way. They've been treated like animals, told that they're animals, and they're acting that way. And you're seeing that. And then I believe with all of my heart that there is agent provocateurs at work. There is something afoot in our nation. And I was very, very happy to see that I saw that the government has designated Antifa a terrorist organization. That is. Beloved, listen, fascism, communism, these things have not gone away. They are here. And I believe that there is a lot of agent provocateur going on. And one of the sad things about it is, one of the horribly sad things about it is that it is taking advantage. White liberals are taking advantage of the black culture. It is absolutely atrocious. 50, 60 years ago, you didn't see in the black culture what you see today. Over 70% of all black children are born out of wedlock. Baby daddy and baby mama isn't a funny thing. That's a travesty. It's a sin, and it's a degradation on our country. It is absolutely a shame. But you're seeing that. You're also seeing a world of violence and all of that propagated. And so it's just a real tragedy going on there. Communism, I think we all thought that had gone away. It's not. I've got some books here that you should read on your own. I brought them in for you to see them. You're going to have to get them yourself. But these are some great books for you to read. I think you should read them. This one is called Why Not Freedom? This is a tremendous one. This one is called The South Was Right. And you got to read it to get it. But if you'll read it, it will absolutely change your perspective. This one's written by a doctor in England called Our Culture, What's Left of It. And it's called, it's by Theodore Dalrymple is his name, and a tremendous one. You need to read it. This one is a book called White Identity, written by Jared Taylor. White Identity. This was a tremendous book that will help you understand and see things that are going on. This one was written by John Whitfield called Battlefield America. And I'm going to tell you one of the things that I'm concerned about. I am profoundly concerned with this country's embracing of martial law. Now, I'm not for rioting. I'm not for looting. I'm not for that kind of stuff at all. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm an adult. And because I'm an adult, I can hold two different thoughts at the same time. Right. And I don't like the fake racism and the excuse. I don't like all of that. But I am absolutely had it up to my eyeballs with a militarized police that has failed to recognize that they are to protect and to serve. I was watching a video here the other day or today in Minneapolis, and there was a group of police officers going down, and there was a lady standing on her porch. They were going through the neighborhood. Go in your house. Go in your house. Marshal, go in your house. Why? Why? I'm on my property. I don't want to go in my house. I'm not breaking any law. I'm standing on my front porch. Why? Who are you to tell me to go into my house? Do you understand? You understand? Well, it's for your own safety. Listen, crime. Did you know the crime rate in Nazi Germany was real low? Did you know that? There wasn't a lot of crime in Nazi Germany, but I don't want to live in Nazi Germany. Give me an amen. And I'm not all of our police are bad by any stretch of the imagination, but there's an over-militarization of our police. When they're showing up at parks and arresting mamas with their kids during the COVID-19, when they're showing up at churches writing down the license plates, when they're going through and they're telling people to go in their house. This lady didn't. She didn't know that they were talking to them. She's filming, and you can hear the officer go light them up, and they fire rubber bullets at her and send her in her house. Why? Who? You know, this situation that happened out there with that man, and listen, that was wrong. That was murder. Arrest that officer. I think all the officers around there should be charged with something. I'll take it a step further. I think that everybody around in that area, when the man was begging for his life, listen, those police work for us. They need to jump in there. We have to take personal responsibility for ourselves. And so, man, I'm not for military police at all. This one's another good one. This one's called Paved with Good Intentions. You ought to get this and read. He said, I don't have time to read. Get off Facebook. You'd be surprised what you'd have time to do if you weren't on Facebook. And this one is written by Colin Flaherty. It's called Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. That was a statement that was made by a black mayor in a town. And he basically said, we've got to learn. He told somebody who had been a family that had been beaten half to death. The young man had been beaten just about half to death. He said, we've got to learn that you don't want to make the black kids angry. That was a black politician that said that in her city. And so these are books that you might want to take a look at and read, but these are definite difficult times. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that it calls for us as Christians to be on our P's and Q's. So I'm going to give you ever say, preacher, what can we do? Do you ever feel like that? What can we do? I'm going to give you a couple things real quick. You might want to write these down, but you don't have to. You can get the recording if you want. I think there needs to be a new breed of, everybody still with me so far? Yes? I think there needs to be a new breed of believers and pastors that look more like guerrilla warfare than they do like latte coffee house drinkers. I think we need a tough new breed of Christians that understand what our calling is and what they should be. Number two, I think that Christians need to be preppers. I think you need to prep. I think you need to be prepared. I think you need to be able to take care of yours and maybe a neighbor and a friend. But I think we definitely need to be prepared. And I'm just going to be honest with you now. This is just your preacher talking. I think our family, we need to have more family learning. I think we need to read more books. I think we need to, greatest book you could ever read as a Christian outside of Christian literature is The 5,000-Year Leap. You need to train your children, teach your children, explain to them what's going on. The Heritage Foundation has some good material, but you need to teach and train that. I think our young men especially, but our young ladies, this is going to sound odd to you, but you're used to me being odd. But I think our young men and our young ladies should be taking self-defense classes. I think they should be trained and know how to defend themselves and to protect themselves and to protect their families. We have raised up a lot of ninnies. Amen. We really have. Young men that couldn't blow the fuzz off of a peanut if they tried. And our young ladies, our young men have to learn how, I think, to defend themselves and to care for their families. You are your own first responder. If you're waiting for somebody to come in and protect you, we're getting to the point now where we've got to be protected from our protectors. And so we need that. I think we need evangelism more and more. I think we need to be getting the gospel out more and more and doing more and more. And then this last point I'm going to suggest to you, and this is just a suggestion, go on to Amazon and get you a book like maybe Battlefield America or The 5,000-Year Leap. That is what I would recommend. Order 10 of them. I think for 10, you probably get them for $100. Order 10, and instead of debating with somebody on Facebook who disagrees with you, get their address, write them a note and say, listen, I love you. This book helped me see things in a different light. I'm going to send it to you free of charge. And if you've got one, send it to me, and get the literature out that will actually make a difference. Arguing with somebody on Facebook isn't going to do a whole lot. But I've probably sent 2 or 3 dozen of those books around to different people, and you need to try to make an impact like that as you can. So strange times, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a good time to be a Christian too, because it means the darker that it gets, the closer we're getting to the coming of the Lord. Amen. All right. Did I tell you to go to Daniel chapter number 6? Are you there? All right. Let's get to Daniel 6 and let's get this going. All right. Now, here's where we are. Daniel chapter 6 is the dividing point in the book. It's going to divide between historical material and prophecy. Now, there's already been prophecy so far in here, but it's been highly historical, following the life or maybe the high parts of the prophet Daniel. When we come back, the next time we come back, we've got evangelism next Sunday, and I think Father's Day or something like that. So in 2 weeks from now, when we come back, we're going to hit, and you're going to find in the next chapter number 7 is, I think, the closest that you can get of finding the United States of America in the Bible. And you'll find, I believe, the United States of America, or at least the Anglo-Saxon Empire, in Daniel chapter number 7, and we'll get to that. But right now, we're getting to the last real historical piece about the book of Daniel. And what it is Daniel now is under King Darius. You remember he was under that fellow by the name of Belshazzar, and things didn't go real well for him. He was rebellious against God, and he fell that night, and we talked about that. While he was having a party, the nation of Persia, the Medo-Persians, were invading Babylon. And now we pick up the story of Daniel underneath of Darius. Daniel chapter 6, verse number 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, note, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Now, you remember we talked about that excellent spirit last week. You need to serve God. You need to be King James only. You need to be wide open for God. You need to be wide open for liberty, but you don't have to be a jerk about it. Amen? There's a time and a place to take your stand. Be careful about not being a jerk about it. And he had a good spirit. Notice verse number 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. He was a good man, and you know what he was? He was a godly politician. That's what he was. Now, you don't get many of those. I think you ought to call them out where they ought to be called out. Every once in a while, you need to commend them when they should be commended. And my goodness alive, I cannot commend enough our governor for the stand that he took early on. I think DeSantis did right by establishing governmentally that the church was essential. Thank the Lord for that. Well, Daniel was a good politician. He was a good man, and they really couldn't find any fault. There was no women in his closet. There was no drunkenness. There was no drugs. There was nothing there. Don't you know they had the Inquirer, and they had the Star, and they had all kinds of stuff going on. And man, they were trying to find something on Daniel, and they could not do it. Watch now, verse number 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Now, you need to underline that. If you don't have that underlined, you need to go ahead and underline that, highlight that, and you need to keep verse number 5 real key and real high in your thinking, because that's what's coming to your doorstep. That's what's coming to your doorstep. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know it sounds negative, but I'm telling you this, and I'm prepping you and I'm warning you. Jobs and insurance and positions and community standing, there's going to come a day when you're going to find that to be a Christian, it's very, very, very uncomfortable to be so in the United States of America. Now, it's that way in other parts of the country, and we've never experienced that. As Christians in America, this is our country. That's our Constitution. That's our Bill of Rights. And we walk around here like we run the show. And we have not yet figured out that we are not running the show anymore. We're not. And there's going to come a day, if the Lord tarries is coming, where it's going to get mighty uncomfortable being a Christian. Now, I can show you in a couple simple ways how that can be. One of them is tax exemption. Listen, if the government jerked the tax exemption from a lot of churches, they'd have a real hard time trying to keep up paying their taxes and their bills. A lot of it. What about even sitting here? We were talking the other day. Could you imagine if they passed a county ordinance or something that you had to check? In fact, I had somebody say that there is a church. I don't know if it's true or not. That there's a church, and some of them are doing it where they're checking the temperature before people come in. We just want to make sure. I couldn't imagine doing that in a million years. Certainly, if the government, whatever the government tells me to do, I'm usually going to do the opposite. Just mark that down. Mark that down. I told you I was on that conference call with the one pastor, and he's a fairly big name pastor up north. He said, we're not even letting people use the bathroom when they come to our church. He said, we're telling them to evacuate. I think he said evacuate, eliminate. He said, eliminate before you come. What? Can you imagine that? That's where we are. Well, it's only going to get worse. Look at what they did. They said, we can't get Daniel any way but his religion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what is coming to the United States of America. I know that I'm beating a dead horse, but it's my horse. My name's on the sign, and I'm going to beat it one more time. It is only the naivete of the Christian pastors across this country that cannot see that ultimately what has happened within the last 3 months has been a spiritual attack. It is a profound naivete among Christian pastors that they hadn't been able to see this thing is not primarily political. It's not sociological. It certainly isn't medical. It is a spiritual attack that has hurt and wounded churches. We just saw a report come out in the news that something like 40% of Christians admitted, yeah, we hadn't really been watching online anyway. It's true. It's true. You know that's true. Even myself, you know that that's true. It's a hard thing to do. So look at what happens. We're going to get him because the only way we can get him is against his faith. Verse 6, then these presidents and princes assembled together the king and said unto the king, King Darius live forever. All the presidents of the king, captains, and Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx have consulted together. It's in there. Trust me, it's in the Hebrew. Have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. All they said was, look, we just don't want anybody to pray for 30 days. Now, there's a couple reasons that they could do that. There's a couple reasons that they could do that. One of the reasons is they want to tap into the pride and the arrogance of Darius here. That could be one of those reasons. Everybody with me now? That could be one of them. But you know what? Another one could be a safety. You've got all these different religions, and what do religions have? They got festivals, and they've got all this stuff, and they get ginned up. And listen, we need to calm everybody down. We need all of this excess stuff calmed down. Just give us 30 days. If you need something, they can come and pray to you. Otherwise, let's just calm stuff down. We're only asking for 30 days, King Darius. Now, I want you to look, what was it that they said? Look right in the middle. Ask any petition of any what? Of any. That's how you should have spelled it, isn't it? Why is it capitalized? It's because the God Daniel's God. And beloved, that is what is happening in the United States of America. I don't care what anybody says or what anybody thinks. It is about you and our faith, and they need us out of the way and ineffective so that what they can do can go right on down the line. So notice what it says. Verse number 8. Now, O king, establish a decree and sign the writing that be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians. You ever heard that? That little statement, this is the law of the Medes and Persians. And once something had been established, you couldn't change it, lock in. Verse number 9. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and decree. Now watch verse 10 very closely. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went to his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did before him. Look at that again, verse number 10. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, what did he do? I'll tell you exactly what he did. An intentional act of civil disobedience. That's exactly what he did. The king had passed an order and said, you can't pray for 30 days. And Daniel knew it and said, I don't care what your order says, I'm going to go pray. And here's the thing that's interesting. Look at what it says. And his windows being what? Open. Now, come on, Daniel. Just go and pray online. Amen? I know I'm drawing a parallel. I know all the theologians on YouTube and everything will give me the emails and everything like that, but that's fine. But I'm drawing a parallel. But don't you see how it is? That Daniel, just close your doors. Just close your windows and pray. You don't have to make a big show of it. But no, there was a principle at stake. And that principle was he was praying to the God of Israel, the God of Jerusalem, and he was not going to hide his faith, even though he was defying the king's order and he was putting his life in danger. Beloved, it costs to be a Christian. It takes a little courage to be a Christian. So notice what happens, verse number 11. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Boy, they're sneaky fellas. They're bureaucrats. They asked him like they don't know, hast thou not signed a decree that every man shall ask a petition of any god, man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, should be cast in the den of lions? I can't remember, king, did you say something about that? Well, of course, the king says, well, the king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Verse 13, then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. They got the law passed. They got the king trapped. And you know what's interesting to me? Look back up there again in verse number 10. And really, to be honest with you, this just kind of hit me as I was reading that. But you know what? Look at this thought and let this thought sink in with you. They said there's no way we can get it unless we get him on his religion, right? And they said pass a law that nobody can pray for 30 days. Now, if they're trying to get him and they pass a law, what does that mean that they knew about Daniel? They knew Daniel was going to pray. What a testimony that is. Isn't that a good testimony? I think that ought to be, listen, the world ought to know how to get us in trouble. They ought to know how to get a Christian in trouble. Just pass this law that they can't come to church and some folks will be there slobbering all over everybody. Right? They ought to know how to do that. Yes or no? I like that. They knew it. Daniel knew it. Everybody knew it. The only one who didn't know it was Darius. And boy, they got Daniel. They got him. And watch what happens, verse 14. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. Boy, haven't you ever done something and then you wake up the next day and you go, that was galactically stupid. Amen? You ever said something to your wife and then a day or two later, I wish I hadn't said that. You ever said something to your husband, and that was stupid. You know, sometimes we do some of the stupidest things. And that's what happens there. He was displeased with himself. And what did he do? He set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Boy, there's old Darius, and he knew that he messed up, and so he called in his constitutional attorney, and he got Sean Hannity on the phone, and got Rush Limbaugh, and he's calling all these guys. There's something we can do, man. I messed up big time. Well, the men, verse number 15, assembled together and said to the king, know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians, that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed. We got you, Bubba. You're locked in. That's a sorry group of people. They just didn't like Daniel. Listen, Daniel never did one single thing that hurt him. Daniel was a good man. And I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. That's one of the things. I think we need a little bit of spunk. I think we need a little bit of tomcat in our Christianity. Christianity's never done one single thing to hurt anybody in this country. You don't see Christians running around trying to pull some sexual bars. Listen, you remember a couple years ago when the nightclub over in Orlando, and I've driven by it, I've seen the club. I passed a friend of mine preacher right around the corner. But you remember when the guy walked in there who had Muslim connections, but walked in there and shot up that with all of those people? You remember? You know some of the first people around there to help out with Christians? That's right. There was I remember that a couple of years ago, there was a picket outside Chick-fil-A, and there was a bunch of homosexuals that were out there picketing chicken. I don't know why you picket Chick-fil-A. You got to love chicken sandwich and waffle fries. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. Oh, fix out that. Listen, that doesn't get you straight, nothing will. Take that waffle fry and tip it up another thing. Right? I'll get you ungay in a hurry. Yes, sir. And they were out there and showing. And you know what those guys did? They took them out their water and they took them food. You don't see Christians doing that. Christians haven't done anything. Hey, Christianity hadn't done anything. When Christians were in charge of education in America, you didn't have riots and gunshot and kids shooting up. You didn't have that. Christianity's never done anything but good to this nation. True Christianity. I'm not talking about Catholicism now, but true Christianity's never done anything but good to any place that it's been. And yet it's the most hated and attacked thing that there is. You know why? It's just because it's a wicked world that doesn't want God. Because that's all that it is. That's all that it is. Daniel hadn't done a stinking thing to anybody except try to be good and right, and they didn't like him, they envied him, they resented him. You know what they're going to do? They're going to kill the old boy. But beloved, I know it's Sunday night. I know you think you're preaching God. I know all that, but listen to me. There's a spirit out there from the other side, from the hard left and the liberals and the neo-communists and the social. There's a spirit out there. Listen, they want Christianity and you eliminated. I remember a while back I was watching one of the speeches here, the State of the Union address. Every once in a while, they'll pan over to AOC. They'll pan over to Kamala Harris. They'll pan over to some of these people. Have you ever seen the vitriol hatred? I mean, the are here in America, there is a hatred there and an anger. It's just not that way. That's why we lose out. Listen, you don't see a bunch of conservatives running out there ranting and raving. You know why? We're not angry as much as they are. There's an anger about that. Well, you can see that's rooted spiritually. They want to kill Daniel. Well, think about that for a minute. What's your war done to them? They're going to kill the man for nothing. That's the kind of thing that they're dealing with. So this king is just devastated. Verse number 16, he's trapped. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel, cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. That's a good statement to make. I don't know how much your boy believed it, but it's a good statement to make. He said, Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest, look at the line, thy God, whom thou servest, he will deliver thee. That's what the line says? Ah, there you go. Well, you know what that tells me? That tells me that the king knew something about Daniel too. They all knew that Daniel is a real deal. Daniel didn't wait 30 days to serve God. Daniel's going to pray. It was a continual thing. Amen? That's what we want. Let me say something real quick. When you go down on the job tomorrow, that's the kind of testimony that you and I will have. It's one thing to serve him here, it's another thing to serve him continually. When you're with your friends, with your family, do it continually. Always, always, always serve God and let people know about that. That's a good thing. So, verse number 17, and the stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet, the signet of the Lord's, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. I'm going to tell you something. Listen, you put human flesh and blood on this, you can hear, can't you see the roaring of those lions? The smell, the stench of that den of lions, and Daniel is getting ready to be thrown down in there. Brother, I'm going to tell you something. If Daniel wasn't scared, he was lying. That man was scared half to death. And at some point along the way, you would have thought that Daniel would say, listen, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. We'll absolutely move our services online. But he never did that. His conviction was his conviction. And I'm going to tell you something. I think we need a revival in our country of men that have conviction. Even if they're wrong, be convicted about your position, bless God, stand and don't budge. Yeah. There might have been one last time when they said you want to back off again, so don't go ahead and throw them down in there. I don't know what the night's going to hold. I don't know, and I hope God will deliver me, but I'm not changing on my conviction. I like that, ladies and gentlemen. I like that. So does God, by the way, because he responded to it. Verse 18, being the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. He didn't even watch Netflix. Didn't listen to iTunes, nothing. You see what's going on? King, you want to see the new show on Netflix? No, I'm good. Well, you want me to bring something to eat? No. Well, you want me to get your iPhone, listen to some music? No, just leave me alone. Like you just wanted to fast and pray and sleep went from him. Verse 19, then the king arose early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. Isn't it interesting? What do we call it? We call it Daniel and the lions. Yeah. See, it's interesting. The Bible calls it a what? A den of lions. It's a little bit of nuance, but it's very important. A lion's den can be empty, but a den of lions means there's lions in there. He was dealing with the real deal. He went to find out, and I love this, verse 20. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God. And notice the next word. It's one thing when you're doing it, and then he got thinking about it all night, and now he says, is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lions? He said it to Daniel, trying to reassure him, and then he sat in there that whole night and thought about all the many men that had gone into that den of lions that never came out. And he went in there, and I can just see tears in his eyes, heartbroken. Daniel, I know I said it, but is God able to do it? And we're the same way, aren't we? Boy, yes, sir, God can do it. Yes, sir, God can heal. I mean, yes, sir, God can answer this prayer. Maybe. It's human nature. Is he able to? And coming out of that dark den, listen to what verse 21. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. Boy, he heard the voice of Daniel coming out of there. Notice he said, my God hath sent his angels and hath shut the lion's mouth, that they have not heard me. Old Sam Allen used to say, God gave him lockjaw. Just gave him lockjaw. They couldn't even get to Daniel. And notice he said, for as much as before him innocent thing was found in me, and also before thee, O king, I have done no hurt. I think, boy, can you imagine? Oh, I think it was old Bob Gray Sr. used to say that at some point through the night, one of those lions probably went over there, laid over there, and Daniel just kind of used that mane as a pillow. Just laid up next to that thing, just went off to sleep. Why? Lions weren't going to bite him. God was in charge of those lions. And I'm going to tell you something. You and I, we have our own lions in our life. We always have them. But understand that God is in control of those lions. He'll only let them go as far as God wants them to go. Boy, when the king heard that in verse 23, then the king was exceeding glad to him and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found on him because he believed in his God. He believed God. Do you? Boy, a great reference is found over there in Hebrews chapter number 11. You ought to read it on your own. Hebrews chapter number 11. You know it. Without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he's a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Believe God. I love that. And notice in verse number 24, and the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, their wives, and the lions had mastery of them. Well, look at that. They cast them into the den of lions, them and their children and their wives. What a horrible thing. Now, if I was one of those lions, I had a conversation with my husband. Why didn't you leave Daniel a little more on? Amen? If I'd been one of the kids, I'd have said, well, Dad, you're an idiot. Yes or no? You know what the lesson of that is? Men, be careful about the decisions that you make.
That's right.
Be careful about those decisions. Because the decisions that you and I make affect our family.
Yep. Right.
Now, this doesn't bit my finger if somebody likes this or not. It doesn't matter to me at all. It is what it is. Up is up and down is down. Sun is the sun, the moon is the moon. And reality is reality. And God has a system. And in that system, that man is the head of the whole.
That's right.
And women thrive under good, godly leadership. A woman can make a decision that may or may not destroy the family. But a man makes a decision, he has the family with him in tow. Amen. Now, I'm just using I'm using an illustration here, but there's been times down through the years where maybe a woman has run off. That family will survive. That man, it does. But you watch the other way happen, you know, a man run off, it devastates that. That's why you watch a family, you watch a wife die, but there's something about that man. And gentlemen, we have a responsibility of making the right decisions and being the best thing can be. And there's not any man in this room that's perfect, and you're looking at maybe the most imperfect man in this room. I've got my struggles and my trials like anybody else, but you got to work at it. You got to labor at it. Listen to me, gentlemen, listen to me. I'm all for alpha male, gun toting, I was supposed to say tobacco chewing, beef jerky chewing. I'm all for fishing and stuff. And we got the end I told you before, I'll never forget going fishing one time. And Brother Rich has got a sandwich in one hand and Cheetos in the other. He's catching a fish. And Brother Paul, he got sick, but he was still fishing, and he'd throw up, and then keep on fishing and talk, and having a good time. Brother James, he's fishing. He's got flip-flops on and amberjack blood all over his leg, And then somebody says, you want a sandwich? No, I'm ready to throw up, man. We got some tough guys in here. But let me tell you something. Toughness is not what is at stake.
Right.
When I talk about toughness, I'm not talking about chest thumping. I'm talking about character. I'm talking about love. I'm talking about spirituality. These men made decisions that affected their children and their wives, and their children and wives lost their lives because these men put their career and pitted themselves against God. And that's a lesson for all of us to learn right there. And so they were thrown at the bottom of the den. And notice in verse number 25, then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, languages that dwell on the whole earth. Now I want to show you something real quick. Underline that little verse, if you will. And for you history majors and history buffs and you younger people, as you grow older, this is what the world makes you think. And education. You're going to be in a class one day, and you're going to hear somebody talk. You can turn on the Discovery Channel and see this. Here's what they tell you. They tell you that Israel and Judaism and ultimately Christianity is a little tiny dot over here. And what happened was, down through the years, it's had great influences from all the great minds of the world, all the great philosophies, and it's just a little tiny thing right there. Now, I want you to look at that, and if you go back to the beginning, there were how many provinces? 120. By the time Esther comes along, there's 127. The empire of Persia stretched all the way from Greece to India. And everything in between there was broken down into roughly 120 provinces. This king sends a letter out, and what does he say? He said, verse 26, I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, steadfast forever. His kingdom, that which not be destroyed, his dominion shall be even unto the end. Plato was born, he was roughly from 428. Plato was from 428 to roughly let me just double check that, 348. That was Plato. Anybody remember the guy that taught Plato? What was his name? Socrates, you nailed it. Anybody know Plato's famous student? Aristotle, you nailed it. There you go. Geniuses. These guys are often, listen, I've sat in a philosophy class in college, and they'll tell you the Apostle Paul got a lot because Plato talked about the three. He talked about the horses and the three and the four. And he'll say, well, the Apostle Paul got his teaching from Plato. That's why sometimes there's things that sound like, no. Plato, anything that he learned that was truth, it came from him being influenced by this Daniel. In other words, what I want you to understand is that Christianity is not a little tiny thing that's been in the corner of the world. But when you get out there, you start to realize Christianity and this Judaism went around the world. Everybody knew about this. And that's why you can pick up little hints of it here and there when you're reading about Hercules. Man, that sounds awful a lot like Samson.
That's right.
There's a reason why. And when you read about the Battle of Thermopylae and you read about that number of those 300 Spartans that stood against it, boy, that number 300, and there wasn't really 300. There was many more than that. There was at least about 1,500 Athenians with them. But that 300, why does that come out? Because I'll tell you why. Daniel was probably telling some of these Grecians about the story of Gideon and his 300. Daniel was probably, in his day, telling the story of Samson. And that's why when you go around the world, every anthropological group has a story about the flood, has a story about creation. It's because God has not left himself without witness. Does that make sense? So you can be rest assured on that. And that's an amazing thing. Now look at that. From the trial of Daniel, what does the Bible say? It was the trial of Daniel that got the gospel, this gospel, out to the world. Sometimes the rough things we go through, they're for a greater purpose. Does that make sense? All right, so notice now what he says. I like what he says in verse 27. He's still preaching as Gentile king. And let me tell you something, not that I'm touting it, but be careful. God can use anybody he wants, anywhere he wants. Here you got a pagan king who is talking good about the Lord God. And I'm going to tell you this, and I know it's going to ruffle some of your feathers, but it is what it is. I'm not talking on both sides of the mouth. I think Donald Trump sometimes can be some of the most ornery, wicked thing. But I'm going to tell you what, putting him up next to Clinton, and putting him up next to Bush, and putting him up next to some of these others, he's been more favorable for Christians than just about any president we've had for a long time. He really has. I like the fact that, let me keep going, let me go. So here's the pagan king, verse 27. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in the earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. Verse 28 is the end of the history of Daniel so far as we know. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus of Persia. Now when you pick up, look at verse number 1 of chapter 7, I'm through just for context. When you pick up in chapter number 7, everybody still with me? In the first year of Belshazzar. So what happens there? It goes back in time. He has a vision. Now, how many kingdoms in the vision in chapter 2, and I'm just not through, but in chapter 2, remember we had the vision, and here I'll draw my big, there's my God. All right, he had the vision of this, right? The image. Head was of arms, iron, and mixed with clay. So how many kingdoms were there? The Medes and the Persians being one. There were how many kingdoms? 4. Watch very closely. I'll leave this with you and we'll pick up. Notice in chapter number 7 that he had a dream, verse number 3. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Yes? Now here's what happens, and I'm just going to leave it with you and we'll come back. When you look at these beasts, what you'll see is that one of them is like a lion, one of them is like a bear, one of them is like a leopard, and the last one is a mongrel beast. He's a beast that is diverse, a beast that is made up of diversity. Okay? All right. So what happens is when we look at these beasts, 1, 2, 3, 4, we go, aha! He has a second vision like this one. But watch. When the Bible interprets itself, notice what the Bible says. Look at chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of whom? Belshazzar. I'll pronounce it for you. Belshazzar. Now watch. Verse number 17. Those are all Schofield Pepper's Bibles. Okay, verse 17. These great beasts which are four kings which shall. These have already come. These 4 beasts are 4 which shall come. You see? And the question is, who are these 4 beasts? These 4 kingdoms, 4 kings that shall come. And next time we meet, we'll talk about that. Amen? Let's stand. We'll be dismissed in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we would thank you for the privilege of being in the house of God. A little bit of lesson tonight, a little bit of civics lesson tonight, a little bit of Bible. Help us to be like Daniel. Help us, dear Heavenly Father, to serve you, to be faithful to you. Lord, help us, even though sometimes the decree of the king says no, to line up with your Bible. If the Bible says yes, then it's yes. To be faithful, to live our faith. Lord, help our country. We need the gospel. We need respite. We need revival. We need healing from you. And I pray that you help us to be the witnesses that we should be. Take us home safely. Bring us back this Wednesday night for supper and preaching and teaching out of your word. Father, may the peace of God rest upon your people. In Jesus' precious